And I say this not because my life is so exciting and I want you to know about it, but I say it because I've had these experiences. And if it can help you in any way, think through how you're thinking about retirement and how you're approaching it and what you expect from it or don't expect from it. If it can help you at all, even just a little bit, that's why I'm doing this. So I've been retired for about 5 years now, and I thought it was a good time to do a little bit of a check-in, both with you and with myself, about what's working and what's not working. So let's just dive right in. First, what is working is that I have been successfully unwound. I have successfully gone through the period of time where you just want to decompress. You just want to let go of all that stress from the 25 years of career and raising kids and being part of that hustle culture, which I was fortunately and unfortunately a part of. But the unwinding, it takes a long time. It takes a lot longer than I thought it did. I actually did a whole video on unwinding and the time that it takes, and I'll link it in the description below. But I have successfully unwound. I did that, check that box. I feel like I am disconnected from that part of my life and from that world. Done. Success. The second thing that's gone really well for us is having had new adventures and experiences. Predominantly, I mean being able to live in Mexico for about 3 years and living in a new culture with a new language and all of the wonderful people that we met there. Fantastic experience. I've always wanted to live internationally, and I still want to do that more, but sort of check that box. We did that, and it wasn't just about box checking. It was really part of our unwinding and also part of our just really forcing ourselves to get out of our comfort zone and have these new experiences. We've also had 2 new grandbabies in our life, and so becoming grandparents, new experience. We've gotten to spend time with them that we wouldn't have otherwise gotten to spend had we not been retired. So really just fantastic, wide range of experiences that we've had, and I call that a success. The fourth thing that's gone really well for us is taking up new hobbies and pastimes and getting into new sort of day-to-day activities. I actually would like to do more and more of that as well, but even just starting this YouTube channel, huge, big experience, new hobby, new pastime for me, learning new skills, and that's been wonderful. My husband has taken up bourbon collecting. He has joined a poker group that he plays poker with at least once a month. Lots of little things like that. I won't go into the whole list. We're really starting to get into the flow of trying new things and opening ourselves up to, learning new skills and new hobbies. I am always on the lookout for a new hobby or something new to learn about or participate in. So I don't anticipate this being sort of okay, check that box, we did that. There's a lot more life to live and a lot more things to learn and get involved in. And I think the last major bucket of what's working, I would have to say, is our finances. Now, this is sort of a two-pronged thing. When we first retired, we retired much earlier than we had planned on retiring for a number of reasons. But one of the things we had to do in order to make that decision and make this work was to re-examine our lifestyle and to make some sacrifices. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. Part of that was moving to Mexico for a while because it is so much cheaper down there. It's getting more and more expensive even there also. Inflation is not just a US-based thing. So making that move really helped us out financially. Now that we're back in the States again though, it's a lot more expensive. We now have cars and car insurance and expenses that we didn't have in Mexico. So, we're having to make some more adjustments, but also we've been super lucky and it's not just luck. There was a lot of hard work and research involved in this, but our investments are going really well. Over the last 5 years, we've been able to actually increase the amount of money that we have in our investment accounts, both in our retirement accounts and in just our straight cash accounts. And that's in large part due to my husband having the time to do lots of great research, and he's super smart and has made some really great calls. But what really got us there was having the money to invest to begin with. That's where, generational wealth comes into play, and all of the privileges that we enjoy. But our finances have gone well, and it's both, like I said, from having good investments and also from making lifestyle choices. And now, before I get into what's not working, let me just first say, especially about piggybacking on what I just talked about with our finances, that I am not complaining at all. I'm not saying that these things that aren't going well are, the big tragedy of the year or whatever. Like this is not me complaining. It's just taking note and stock for myself about what maybe is happening differently than we had anticipated or hoped, and thinking through, are there things that we need to rethink or let go of, or what's happening? It's always good to take stock of where you are and what your assumptions are and see if you need to adjust. And I think one of the very hardest things for us, especially since we've come back to the US, now we came back to the US because we had grandbabies and we didn't want to miss out on that. And so that was a choice that we made, but in doing so, we put ourselves in a position where it was just going to be more expensive than we had planned. So we've made some adjustments and we're doing fine, but what's been really hard is getting back into the consumption culture. The US, and I'm sure it's the same in many other developed countries especially, but we have this culture, this constant advertising and social media with all these great clothes and cars and all these fantastic things that we absolutely look at those things and say, yeah, I want that. Yeah, I would like that. But that whole idea of wanting something because you saw it or because you see it over and over again, we escaped that when we lived in Mexico. When we were there, we found ourselves really not wanting for much of anything at all. And because it's a more simple lifestyle. Now, maybe it would be different if we had lived in a big city in Mexico, but being in a smaller town, it was really just about the day-to-day life. We didn't want for all of the things that you had to spend money on. And also, a lot of that stuff wasn't even available where we were, so we didn't really have a choice. Now that we're back in the US, we both agree that way more than we would like to, we find ourselves thinking, ooh, I actually need that thing. I need that. And we have to remind ourselves that we didn't want to get back into the habit of owning a lot of stuff. We downsized significantly from a 1,700 square foot house down to an 800 square foot apartment. And, it's been really great, but it's hard. It's just really hard. And I notice it, especially this time of year. When I'm recording this, it's October and we're starting to get into, Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas. And it's especially hard when you're in the season of, all the cute decorations and all of the gift giving and all of the, just the stuff that comes along with the holiday season. And I particularly find it really hard during this time of year to remind myself that I don't want to do that, and finding a balance between I don't want to do that and allowing myself some of the simple joys. Sometimes I do just buy the thing, whatever that is. So having to get back into this culture of consumption has been a challenge, and one that will just continue every single day until we're back living on a beach in Mexico. I don't even know if that's going to happen, but I'd like to think that we can, over time, take baby steps to get to a point where it's not such a big deal living here and not being part of the consumption culture. The second thing that isn't going the way that we had planned or hoped when we first retired was travel. Now, I know I just talked about, all the time that we spend in Mexico, but we had envisioned that we would be spending, the last 5 years and the next 5 to 10 years traveling all over the world, living in France for a couple months at a time, going to Thailand for a month or two, that kind of thing. And the big change in our life has been the grandbabies. And you know what they say, I think it was a John Lennon thing, a John Lennon lyric, that life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And that's exactly what happens. And we wouldn't change it for the world, but it looks very different now than what we had expected it to look like at this point. And the last two things that aren't going quite to plan, and I would actually maybe lump these two together, but is downsizing. We definitely wanted to downsize and simplify, and we didn't need to live in a great big house anymore, is what we told ourselves. Now, we kept our house and have rented it out, and that's part of our financial success too, has been being able to live off of that income. But downsizing has been great, and living in a small apartment with two people who spend all day, every day together, we realize, and we, want to welcome family in to entertain. We want to have the grandbabies spend the night, that kind of thing. We're finding it's not quite enough room. So the downsizing has been great up until now, but we think it's probably time to upsize again. And this is what leads me to the second part of this issue, is that while having a home that is generating income for us, not only helping to pay off the mortgage that we have on the house, but it's also generating extra income, which we use to live off month to month. Letting that go is gonna be a little bit of a challenge, and it's not what we had planned. It would be probably better to keep that in. That's an investment for us now. It would probably be better to keep that over the long run. In order for us to buy a home that's a little bit bigger than where we're living now, we're going to have to sell our house in the Bay Area and use the proceeds from that to buy a new place. And again, I know, believe me, I'm not crying, I'm not whining, I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you what my situation is. So in order to have the lifestyle that we want, in terms of we have extended family that live very close by, having people over, having the grandbaby stay with us for more than just a few hours at a time, we really do need a bigger place. So next year we're going to be buying a new home, but we can't do another mortgage because neither one of us has a job, by the way. Pro tip, if you're going to retire, make sure that you have secured whatever loans you want to secure, because banks don't like to loan to people who don't have jobs. So anyway, that's a whole other topic. But so we need the proceeds from our house in the Bay Area to buy a house up in Washington State, and then what? And that wasn't part of our money strategy. Our money strategy was to keep that investment. It was to have the income from that house, and both of those things figured into our retirement planning. So we're just having to make different choices, take a little bit of a different risk. So things are just looking a little different than what we had anticipated, and that's okay. So really, it's just that things look a little bit different than we had originally planned, and that's okay. Because like we said, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And so the next year or so is going to be full of a lot more changes. Having to sell the house in a different state, buying a new house, figuring out whether we're going to live in that house. I'm not even going to go into what the possibilities are because there are so many different ways we could do this. Anyway, lots of changes ahead, but that's kind of what we signed up for. When we retired early, we made the decision that not working and going through all of the stress that it takes to keep that lifestyle up was way worth whatever we were going to have to do to make that happen. So that's what we're doing. Constant state of being nimble and bending and flexing and changing, and recognizing that we also want and need very different things now than we did 5 years ago. We're different people. We've had lots of experience between now and back then. And acknowledging that and moving forward in a way that acknowledges what's changing. So all of this to say, that's my experience. That's what's worked well for me, what hasn't worked the way I thought it was going to work for me. And it'll be interesting to do this video again in 5 years or a year or 2 years. Maybe I'll do an annual check-in to see what's changed. And I say this not because my life is so exciting and I want you to know about it, but I say it because I've had these experiences. And if it can help you in any way, think through how you're thinking about retirement and how you're approaching it and what you expect from it or don't expect from it. If it can help you at all, even just a little bit, that's why I'm doing this. So thank you so much for still being around at this point. If you are so inclined, please do all the things. It would really help me out. And I will see you next time.